Hey, it's Kellie Davis of FitThrive.com and owner of Get Glutes, here to go over 3 of my favorite hip openers that I use on my squatting and deadlift days. The first exercise I'm going to go over is the active or dynamic pigeon. Often we see pigeon pose or pigeon stretch in a yoga routine, or we might use it as part of our cool down at the end of our workout. However, I like to use the active or dynamic pigeon in the beginning of my warm-up in order to really sink in and open up those hip flexors. So when you're doing an active pigeon, you're really incorporating the P and F, which is when you're actively contracting the muscles for a given amount of time and then passively relaxing them. Often the active and passive portions are a trade-off, so you will activate them for 4 to 5 seconds, and then you might passively sink in the stretch for 5 to 10 seconds, and we just run this in cycles. So you're going to do that for each side, and typically I do about 5 cycles for each side during my warm-up. And this front leg, you want to have it as close to 90 degrees as possible. That's not always the case, so if it has to be bent a little bit, that's perfectly fine. The important thing is this back hip is squared up. So you don't want to be leaning off to the side. You want that knee rotated so that it's down to the ground, and your hip is squared up and facing forward. In yoga, we often see pigeon pose that we go down on our elbows. For this one, I want you to stay upright, and I really want you to engage the core and make sure that your spine is nice and elongated. So the active portion of this stretch is the drive that comes from the front leg, and what I want you to think about doing is driving that knee into the ground and really contracting all of the quadricep, hamstring, and glute muscles. And we're gonna hold that for 5 seconds. And then once we release, I want you to think about sinking this front glute all the way into the floor. And you can hold this portion for 5 to 10 seconds. And then we're just gonna repeat the cycle, driving the knee into the ground, activating all of the leg muscles here, and then sinking back down. And as you're sinking, this front glute is sinking into the floor, and I also want you to pay attention to opening up this back hip flexor. So this hip flexor should also be pressing further into the floor. All right, for the next hip opener, you need some sort of either wall or banister, even a sofa that you can place your leg on. And then also, I use yoga blocks. However, if you don't have a yoga block, you can use a mat or something else, even a towel that you roll up under your knee. The first part of this move, we're going to place our knee onto the block or the mat, and then you want to align your shin and your foot along the wall or the apparatus, and make sure that you're able to get full plantar flexion. So you want the top of the foot to lay flat onto the wall. And then from there, we're going to come up on this front foot, and depending on your level of flexibility, getting into this position, you might be pretty tight. So it might just be that you have to stop here. But the goal is to come all the way up and open up that full front hip. And you want to bring the glute to the back of the heel here, and you can even do an overhead reach from this position. So in this one, we can also take it from active to passive by flexing the glute, which is a more advanced version of this stretch. So if you want to go ahead and do that, you can leave your arms up overhead or bring them down to the side, whatever's comfortable for you. We're going to think about pressing through that hip flexor and trying to fire the glute as much as possible. It's going to be more of an opening of the hip flexor. So you're really going to think about pressing hard through that front hip flexor, hold for 5 seconds, and then relax, pushing that glute back into the heel. Again, we're going to flex, pushing forward, and then relax. And again, we can go through the same cycles. So 4 to 5 seconds active, 5 to 10 seconds passive. All right, for our last hip opener, I actually like to use the valve slides for this one. If you don't have sliders or valve slides, it's totally fine. You can do it without, but I like the sliding momentum that you get that really opens up the hips. Go ahead and place your knees on the sliders. If you're on a slippery surface, you might even be able to just use towels. And from here, all you're going to do is slide the hips open as far as you can possibly go. The important thing is that you're keeping that shin aligned with the knee. So don't turn in the feet, keep those shins out, and just open up as far as you can go. And from here, we're gonna take it from passive to active just by sitting back into those hips. So if you're a little bit tight and you can't sit back too far, you can bring it in somewhat. Just trying to keep that on there. And you're just gonna sit back and forward and just take it back for 5 seconds, forward for 5 seconds. And a more intermediate variation is just coming down on the elbows. Sitting back and coming forward. If sitting back is tough for you, go ahead and bring your hips in a little bit more because you really want to get the passive and active going. When you first start doing this one, it's actually pretty strenuous, because you're just digging into areas that you don't normally dig into. So take your time with this. This is one that I would do several times a week if you really want to get good at it. And this is one that'll also help you get your center splits. So if you're into flexibility work, this is a really good one. So go through about 5 passes and then you can try to open up a little bit more and do the same thing. The important thing too here is to keep that spine neutral. I don't want you to arch the back. I want you to keep that spine nice and neutral. So you can do the same thing without sliders, just on the mat. And then as you start moving out, you just have to move one, I focus on moving one knee at a time. All right, that's it for this Fit Friday. I hope these drills really help you and you start using them in your warm-up routines for your workouts. And go ahead and send me a note and let me know what you think about them. And I also want to know about your progress. So, try them out and then report back to me in a month and let me know how you progressed. Have a fun weekend and we'll see you next week.